It got a coat on top of it. Bob and I were holding hands when they walked in. He said, "Wait for the laugh." I asked, "What if there isn't one?" And then I was back under the covers. The screen went back. The viewers saw the sheets and they left. With her deep voice, sharp eyes, and magnetic charm, Suzanne Pleshette was never the glitzy Hollywood starlet, but she had a beauty that made people unable to look away. From the Bob Newhart Show to the Birds, she had a brilliant career full of parts that people will never forget. But behind the bright lights of Hollywood was a life full of changes that no one saw coming. A marriage that seemed like a fairy tale but fell apart within months. A long-awaited love story with the man she had loved her whole life but could not be with right now. A lifelong love that was trumped by the pain of not being able to have children and seeing the man she loved most die of a terrible illness, among other things. Still, Suzanne was never the type of woman who let things break her. She was the type of person who kept their head held high even when they were sad or sick. Few people know the facts about her, though, the parts of her story that Hollywood never told. You'll never see Suzanne Pleshette the same way again after you find them. Suzanne, born on January 31, 1937 in Brooklyn, New York, Pleshette grew up in a home where art was not just a job but a way of life. Both of her parents were Jewish and had roots in Russia and Austria-Hungary. They met and got married in just 2 weeks, but their love story lasted a lifetime. Geraldine Rivers, her mother, was a stage dancer, and Eugene Pleshette, her father, was the stage manager at the Paramount Theater before becoming a major player in the TV business. Suzanne was born under the stage lights and showed right away that she had a gift, but her ability wasn't the only thing that made her unique. Her determination and drive to do well also did. She didn't mind being in front of a crowd from a very young age, which isn't usually a trait for a child. She followed her dream by going to the High School of Performing Arts, which is where future Hollywood stars are made. However, her path was anything but simple. She went to Syracuse University at first, but quickly decided it wasn't the right place for her. She dropped out of school and then moved to Finch College. It was there that she found her real calling, at the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater. There she learned to act from the famous Sanford Meisner, who was one of the most important acting teachers in Hollywood. Suzanne Pleshette's first show on Broadway was Compulsion, which was based on the true story of Leopold and Loeb, one of the most shocking acts in American history. Emotional depth was needed to play a part in this kind of production, and Suzanne showed that from the moment she walked on stage. In shows like The Cold Wind and The Warm, Golden Fleece, and The Miracle Worker, she continued to show how talented she was. The road wasn't always smooth, though. She came so very close to getting the part of Louise in the show Gypsy when she tried out for it. She didn't get the job, though, because Sandra Church's singing voice was better. It would have been devastating for many actors if they lost their job, but for Suzanne it was just a sign that she needed to take a new road. In the same year, she made her first TV performance in Harbor Master 1957. It was a big change, but it wasn't a surprise. Suzanne knew that she couldn't just work on Broadway if she wanted to make a name for herself. This choice paid off right away. In 1962, she was nominated for her first Emmy for her part as Julie Lawler in the hit medical show Dr. Kildare. The nod was more than just a big deal for Suzanne Pleshette. It was the entertainment industry's way of saying that she was a name to keep an eye on. After years of working on her acting skills on stage and TV, Suzanne Pleshette reached the top of her career with parts that made her famous in Hollywood. Her first big break came in 1962 with the love drama Rome Adventure, in which she played with Troy Donahue. The movie not only got people's attention, but it also led to his marriage to Donahue in real life. Suzanne knew, though, that acting in love movies wasn't enough to build a career that would last. She needed more. When Alfred Hitchcock saw Suzanne in 1963, he knew she would be great in The Birds. Even though she wasn't the star, her performance as Annie Hayworth was memorable. Annie made an impact with her quiet voice, thoughtful look, and an unspoken sadness that stayed beneath the surface. She did not use grand scenes or dramatic outbursts. Hitchcock was known for being very picky about which main ladies he cast, and the fact that he gave Suzanne this part shows how good she was. The Birds became one of Hitchcock's classics, which showed again how well Suzanne could do in mentally difficult movies. She kept acting in well-known movies like Nevada Smith 1966, in which she played with Steve McQueen, and Support Your Local Gunfighter 1971, a Western comedy. But Suzanne really became famous on TV, not in movies. That's where she hit the top of her career. By the late 1960s, she had been in a lot of popular TV shows like The Fugitive, Columbo, Dr. Kildare, and The Wild Wild West. It wasn't just a special role, she also had a short relationship with the lead character David Jansen. Even though those parts helped her become known, it was her time on the Bob Newhart Show 1972-1978 that made her an unbeatable TV star. Not only did Suzanne bring charm to the role of Emily Hartley, but she also made the character smart and funny. Not only was she a background wife, she was an important part of the show's success. Emily was loved by many for both her sharp sense of humor and the way she handled her marriage to her husband. Suzanne was nominated for 2 Emmys for the part, which was a big deal that solidified her place in the TV business. But she wasn't done yet, even though she quit the Bob Newhart Show. Suzanne showed up out of the blue in the 1990 season end of Newhart 1982-1990, which was one of the most shocking events in the history of TV. At the start of the scene, Bob Newhart woke up next to Suzanne's old show character Emily Hartley. It turned out that everything in Newhart had been a dream. People were shocked and the media praised the smart turn of events. It wasn't just a great finish, it showed how Suzanne had an enduring effect on American TV. Suzanne kept working hard at her job even after she was well into her golden years. While playing Lois Whitley on Will and Grace, she made her last TV performance. She tried speech acting as well as live-action acts. The role of Zira she played in The Lion King II, Simba's Pride 1998, got her a nod for the Annie Award, which is one of the highest awards in animated voice acting. Even though Suzanne was only playing a bad guy in a cartoon movie, she gave the character an edge that made her really come to life. Which of Suzanne Plechette's parts what do you remember best? It was either Emily Hartley from the Bob Newhart Show, who was smart and funny, or Annie Hayworth from The Birds, who was mysterious. Or was there another act of hers that you will never forget? Tell us about your favorite part that Suzanne Pleshette has played. Suzanne Pleshette made her mark on everything she did, from Broadway to Hollywood to TV to animation. Suzanne Plechette's work was going great, but her personal life wasn't as stable as people might have thought. In Hollywood, even the happiest love stories can end in tragedy in an instant. Her relationship with Troy Donahue was a great example of this. It all started on the set of the 1962 movie Rome Adventure. In the movie, they were a loving couple in Italy, which looked like a dream. The draw was just as strong off-screen. Troy Donahue was one of Hollywood's most enticing leading men at the time. With his golden hair and beautiful smile, he was a teen hero. Suzanne, on the other hand, stood out because of her sharp beauty and smart personality. People loved how well they worked together on screen, and when they announced they were getting married on January 4, 1964, everyone thought it was a real-life fairy tale. But they split up less than 8 months after they got married. The papers were filled with stories about their split. It was a short marriage between 2 famous people. It was always exciting to read about stars. The question what really happened was even more interesting to the people. In reality, they were too different from the start. Suzanne grew up in an artistic home that had high standards and a strong desire for security. She loved classic home decor, a well-planned dinner by candles, and good wine. Troy Donahue, on the other hand, lived a happy, relaxed life. He liked walking around the city more than sitting at a fancy table. Their differences weren't just about habits, they showed a big gap in their life views and ideals. But if their disagreements were only about how they lived, the marriage might have lasted longer. Accusations of cheating were the real reason for its quick fall. Even though Troy Donahue was married to Suzanne, there was talk that he was still seeing actress Connie Stevens almost as soon as they got married. Some people close to them said that their relationship wasn't just a rumor but had real substance. If it's true, this could have been the part that made Suzanne stop the marriage after only a few months. At the same time, there were also reports about Suzanne. Some people said she liked the experienced actor Glenn Ford, but unlike Troy, she never did anything public that should not have been done. Still, as doubts grew, the marriage, which was already weak, got even worse. In the end, Suzanne was the one who put a stop to everything. There were no heated fights or shocking news stories. Even though she knew they were never meant to be together, she chose to end the relationship rather than stay in a bad one. When she thought about what happened, she didn't feel angry or bad about it. Troy was a good man, but I don't think we should have married because our values were different. But I don't feel bad about it because he taught me how to laugh. Their marriage ended quickly, but its effects were still felt. Suzanne, did you ever really believe in that love? Hey Troy Donahue, did you really cheat? What part did Connie Stevens play in this story? There was never a full answer to these questions. Even though no one knew what really happened, Suzanne closed this part of her life and went on. After the split, Troy Donahue tried again and again to find happiness in a new marriage, but none of them worked. He got married 3 more times, but all of them ended the same way as his marriage to Suzanne, quickly and badly. His golden years went by quickly and his career went downhill quickly. Hollywood forgot about him over time. He lost his leading roles and now only has small roles in movies that don't get much attention. His personal life did better, but he had a hard time with alcoholism, which made the once loved star a faraway memory. Troy Donahue went down a road that he never fully recovered from after he was once one of Hollywood's biggest stars. At the same time, Suzanne Pleshette kept going with her life. What happened next was even more amazing. Suzanne Pleshette didn't jump right into another relationship after her short marriage to Troy Donahue, but then she met Thomas Joseph Gallagher III. He was born on January 28, 1934 in Galveston, Texas, to Thomas Joseph Gallagher Jr. and Toy F.A. Rice. He wasn't an actor or a Hollywood star. He was a businessman in the oil industry who was quiet, steady, and private. Suzanne saw Gallagher as more than just her partner in life. Amidst the glamour and chaos of the world, he was a steadying force. Real peace was hard to find. Gallagher and Suzanne became husband and wife on March 16, 1968. There were no more Hollywood scandals or public ties with famous people. This time she picked someone who would really make her feel stable. But fate had other ideas. Suzanne was happy with her job and her husband, but she wanted something more: a home full of children, her own family. That dream would never come true, though. She had one of the worst tragedies of her life during her marriage to Gallagher, a miscarriage that stopped her from having children. Being a strong woman like Suzanne, this loss hurt more than just her body. It hurt her emotionally too, and it never fully healed. But she wouldn't let hopelessness define her. In an interview in October 2000, she was asked about having children, and she honestly said, "I would have loved to have Tommy's children, but my nurturing instincts were satisfied in other ways. I have a large extended family. I was a mother on every set, so if this was my particular karma, then that's fine." She never had children, but her love for Gallagher lasted for over 30 years, which is very rare in Hollywood, where marriages end as quickly as they begin. Even so, happiness doesn't last. Gallagher had lung cancer many years ago and beat it, but bad luck caught up with him again. He passed away on January 21, 2000 after getting an E. coli infections. Suzanne was deeply hurt by his sudden death. In the end, he was the one who made her feel safe and at peace, which was something she had been looking for a long time. He was put to rest at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, Los Angeles, California. Suzanne would also be buried there after her death. She didn't seem interested in finding love again after Gallagher's death, but fate had other ideas and brought her back to an old friend, her co-star from the 1950s, Tom Poston. Still, even after she fell in love again, tragedy was still going on with her. Suzanne thought that the best years of her life were over after she lost Gallagher, but fate had other ideas. This time it took her to an old love. There was a time when Suzanne Pleshette and Tom Poston were younger and their relationship began. It was in the 1950s when they both acted in the Broadway play The Golden Fleecing, 1959. A love story began to grow. They went on dates and felt something for each other, but life had other plans for them. Suzanne and Tom both got married to other people. They kept working at their jobs for decades. It looked like they would never meet again because they lived very different lives. But Hollywood is always full of surprise meetings. They worked together, so even though they didn't live together, they were still close. In different ways, both had something to do with Bob Newhart shows. In 1972-1978, Suzanne played Emily Hartley on The Bob Newhart Show. Tom also played Emily Hartley on Newhart. There was, however, a small link between them. Tom had played Cliff the Peeper Murdoch in the first show. He was an old friend of Bob Hartley's character. Because of this thin link, they had never really grown apart. But it wasn't until 2000, after both of them had lost loved ones, fate really did bring them back together. Bob Newhart, who has been friends with both of them for a long time, was the one who brought them back together. Newhart saw that Suzanne and Tom were too much alike, and more importantly, that they could make each other happy in the years they still had. He was right too. Suzanne and Tom said they were getting married in January 2001, just a few months after they announced they were getting married in December 2000. There wasn't a lot of attention on this Hollywood wedding between two young stars. They finally got together after being apart for more than 40 years. In their last years, they were happy and loved each other. There was no hurry or the pressure of being young. There were just two people who had been through enough loss to know that having each other was the most valuable thing in life. They weren't one of Hollywood's most famous couples, but people who knew their story thought they were one of the most beautiful. Their love wasn't based on fame or the spotlight, but on a deep friendship that had been going on for decades. But life always takes something away before it gives something else. Tom Poston died on April 30th, 2007 because he couldn't breathe. Suzanne didn't just lose her husband, she said goodbye to the man she had loved since she was a child, which broke her heart. Two people whose lives had once become separate eventually found each other again, even though it looked like it was too late. However, maybe true love never comes too late, it just shows up at the right time. It was like Suzanne Plechette's life was a book. She had a successful job, a long-awaited love, terrible losses, and finally a fight she couldn't win. Suzanne lost more than just her husband when she lost Tom Poston in 2007. She lost a part of her mission. The woman who used to face every problem head-on was now in a completely different fight. It wasn't against Hollywood or the ups and downs of love, it was against a disease that was slowly killing her from the inside, and she lost this time. For someone who had smoked 2 packs a day for 40 years, getting lung cancer wasn't a big surprise. Following her first big health worry in 1998, Suzanne made the choice to stop smoking. But time doesn't give second chances no matter how hard she tries. By the time Cedars-Sinai Medical Center told her in 2006 that she had lung cancer, it was too late. She never let herself be overcome by sadness, though. Suzanne continued to live her life the way she always had, going through treatment and refusing to let her illness make her weak. She didn't want the world to see her as a weak patient fighting death, even though her health was getting worse. Suzanne went public for the first time at a Bob Newhart Show reunion event in September 2007. The crowd went silent when she walked in a wheelchair. The woman who used to be lively and attractive looked weak and pale now, but her wit and sharpness were still there. While Bob Newhart helped her move, she smiled and joked, "It's so sad that I'm still alive to be here." The crowd laughed and felt sad at the same time. That was Suzanne, strong, funny, and determined to win no matter what. When people asked her about her health, she laughed that she was better, but everyone knew that wasn't true. Time can't be stopped, though. Suzanne Pleshette died at her home in Los Angeles on January 19, 2008. She was 70 years old. The strangest thing is that she died less than a year after Tom Poston, and from the same disease, respiratory failure. The man she loved most had died from this sickness. For many, this wasn't an accident. Some people thought Suzanne had lost her will to fight after Tom died. But she wasn't alone even after she died. She was buried at Hillside Memorial Park next to her two late husbands, Thomas Gallagher and Tom Poston. It was a sad sight. One guy gave her security and the other gave her love that took a while to come but was worth the wait. And from now on they would always be with her. 2 weeks later, Suzanne's last day in Hollywood was marked by an amazing event. She was given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame after she had died on January 31, 2008, which would have been her 71st birthday.
She had been picked to receive this honor before she died. The well-known curb had her name written on it. A group of co-workers and friends came to watch the event. Her friend and co-star Bob Newhart got emotional as he talked. One of Suzanne's best friends, Marcia Wallace, broke down in tears as she talked about the good times they had together. Even though she could make you laugh even in the worst times, that didn't mean she wasn't hurting. Suzanne Plechette's spirit lived on in the part she played, the memories of those who loved her and the hearts of people who would continue to love her work even though she wasn't there to see the event. The Walk of Fame has her name on it. People who liked her movies kept watching them again and again, and they could still feel her presence. Suzanne Pleshette never really left, that much was clear. Suzanne Pleshette worked hard for over 50 years, so her impact is more than just her famous parts and hit movies. It comes from how strong she is, how determined she is, and how much she loves. She was the perfect example of an actor who wouldn't let anything hold her back. She was one of the few actresses who could easily take over both the big and small screens, from Broadway to Hollywood, from comedies to dramas, and from TV shows to movies. She was talented, but she was also a symbol of a group of women who dared to go against what Hollywood thought they should be like. They refused to fit in and made their own space in the business. Suzanne had an impact on people who lived long after she died. Marissa Hargitay, Katie Sagal, and Patricia Heaton are just a few of the actresses who have said that she taught them how to be brave when picking parts and fighting against being typecast. To win over viewers, she showed that a woman artist didn't have to play weak or submissive roles. She had the ability to be smart, funny, brave, and naturally charming. During her work, she paved the way for others and showed them that they were not limited by the limits that Hollywood set. But Suzanne's unwavering spirit in the face of hardship was what she left behind more than her work. She never let the losses in her life break her, and she never let being sick make her less brilliant. Her personality stayed the same no matter what: smart, funny, and extremely proud. Even in her last moments, when she went out in public with her friends and co-workers for the last time, she kept laughing and making jokes as if nothing could really beat her. That's probably why people will always remember the name Suzanne Pleshette even though she's not here anymore. When people think of artists like her, they don't just remember the movies they were in, they also remember the strong spirit they brought to life. It was both beautiful and sad for Suzanne Pleshette to lose loved ones. She took over Hollywood with her skills and determination, but in the end she couldn't get away from fate. Even though she has been sick with cancer for 2 years, her influence lives on in movies and people's memories and in the strong spirit she left behind. What does Suzanne Pleshette remind you of the most? Do you believe she deserves even more praise? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and follow if you want to read more inspiring stories about Hollywood stars.